Hello, everybody, and happy Texas Tuesday. Today we have a few stories for you around the state. First, we're going to start at the southern border. Texas was ordered to remove the buoys that Greg Abbott had put in place to deter illegal aliens from crossing over to the state. Let's check this out.
Court of Appeals sided with a lower court ruling Texas must remove those floating border barriers in the Rio Grande. The opinion came down earlier today by a three-judge panel. Fox 4's Stephen Dial has more on what that means and what may happen next. Stephen.
Steve, the fight over what Texas can and cannot do on the border is likely to head to the Supreme Court. While the Fifth Circuit is very conservative, the panel that made the ruling had two Democrat-appointed judges and one Republican who wrote the dissenting opinion. Now, the Governor Abbott has faced backlash from some over Operation Lone Star when they installed a floating border barrier in the Rio Grande River. The border buoys are very limited at this point, spanning only a couple of football fields in length in the river. But Abbott told reporters there's funding and a plan to create miles of the floating barrier. Like many of the border security issues, this one comes down to a matter of state versus federal authority. The federal government said the barrier violates the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899, but an attorney for the state argued that the law only applies to navigatable rivers. The stretch of the Rio Grande that's been debated is no more than 4 feet deep, according to the state. This is audio from oral arguments back in October.
First, Texas obstructed the river's navigable capacity without congressional authorization. Second, it built a boom or other structure in the river without a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers.
The undisputed testimony is that these buoys are temporary. They are designed to be tactical and moved.
Now, we reached out to the governor's office, and the governor actually in the last 30 minutes sent a comment saying that he and the attorney general are going to see if the full appeals court can rehear the case, because this was just a three-judge panel. And if that is not happening, Governor Abbott says they will fight this in the Supreme Court if needed.
And I'm not surprised this is happening. We knew this was going to be a battle when this took place, when they put these buoys in the water. And Governor Abbott is ready to go all the way to the Supreme Court, as you heard. Governor Abbott is a lawyer himself, so he knows the law very well. So that's why I'm not surprised that he's taking it as far as he can. I think he's doing a lot of things at the border, knowing that he's going to be challenged in court by the Biden administration and other, judges around the country, around the state. But Abbott knows what he's doing here, and I always said it was better to just go ahead and do certain things and let it go to the courts instead of sitting around and waiting and not doing anything and begging Biden to do his job. We know he's not going to do his job, so might as well take action, get things done, and then let it play out in the courts. Deal with it that way. Another ruling against us, which I'm not happy about, but hey, like I said, do certain things and let it play out in the courts. Check it out.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is appealing a federal judge's decision on the Texas-Mexico border. In October, the state filed a lawsuit accusing the federal government of destroying concertina wire. That's what Texas, kind of like razor wire, that Texas officials had installed along the border. Now, there's been a back and forth in court over it. Today, Texas appealed the judge's ruling, which allows the Biden administration to destroy wire that Texas law enforcement places along the border. In the past, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security said Border Patrol agents have a responsibility to act when there are conditions that put their workforce or migrants at risk. The Attorney General argues that the wire is necessary to deter people from illegally crossing the border into Texas.
Now, I don't know if you remember when this happened, when Border Patrol agents were cutting wire and letting people through. Now, this is like the story said, this has been a back and forth. Texas is saying that we need this wire up here to deter people from coming in because Biden's not doing his job. And then the other hand, they're saying this is helping us. Border Patrol is saying it's preventing us from doing our job in some cases. When certain bad things are happening, somebody's hurt, somebody needs to be saved from the water, they have to cut it to get to it. I understand that, but like Ken Paxton said, these things are put in place to deter people from coming across the border. And that is what was said in this whole battle in court, is that, yes, Border Patrol has a responsibility to save people, to do certain things, but at the same time, these things are self-inflicted if you take that chance of coming across the border and crossing illegally versus going to a port of entry. So it's kind of two-sided. So I understand both sides of the argument, but obviously I'm for border security. I'm for doing things the legal way, so which is why I side with Ken Paxton and Governor Abbott on this issue. But there's some good news. Texas legislature sends $1.54 billion dollar bill for border barriers to Governor Abbott. It says Senate Bill 3 would also appropriate $40 million for state troopers to patrol Colony Ridge, a housing development outside of Houston, and allow the state to send money to local jurisdictions to offset the cost of enforcing another immigration-related bill. Now, this is going to provide funding for border barriers, walls, which we're doing right now. We're actually building a border wall down there at the border, obviously. It's actually moving pretty rapidly. Abbott has been posting videos on this weekly, sometimes daily, giving updates on this. Barriers are being installed, so it's not like Texas is sitting back doing nothing. I know there is a lot of criticism saying we should be doing more, but there are things being done. And yes, I think some things have taken some time, like getting the wall built. But in the meantime, we have been spending a lot of money at the border with DPS agents, National Guard troops, concertina wire, and things like that. And then we have another bill coming through, which I will get into later. Senate Bill 4, which is going to allow Texas law enforcement officers to arrest illegal aliens coming across the state. We'll get into that when he signs it in a couple of weeks. It will be sent to him, and there will be a signing ceremony, which I think will be the biggest border bill signed in the state of Texas to combat this crisis we're seeing down there at the southern border. But anyway, that is a border update for you right now in the state of Texas. And next, I want to move on to drag queens. Texas town sides with drag queens over churches in Christmas parade fight. This happened in a town called, I believe it's Taylor, Texas, not far from Austin. No surprise there. It says a small Texas town took Christ out of Christmas and replaced the newborn king with a bunch of drag queens. For years, the Taylor Area Ministerial Alliance was responsible for organizing the annual Christmas parade. But controversy arose when LGBTQ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 activists demanded to be allowed to participate. Oh my goodness. In 2021, instead of giving attention to Christ on their float, the activists added drag queens and glorify themselves and sexualize the parade in front of hundreds of families with children, the Christian ministers alleged. Last year, the controversy became so great that the town leaders decided to host a second parade, which then erupted into a national culture war. So by them, they wanted to host a separate parade. They wanted to please everybody, which, look, you have one parade for what is really intended for, with these ministers and more religious based, I guess, and what Christmas actually means, the true meaning of Christmas, which is totally fun. What we do in my town, we have a parade every year, very festive, and there are no drag queens, but the LGBTQ community got upset by this, that they couldn't include the drag queens in it, so the city decided to have a separate parade, which I'm not look, I don't know how you feel about that, but instead of putting the two together, and yes, you're going to have a lot of different ideas coming together at once. People that are going to show up to the parade will not agree with having drag queens. A lot of them will not agree with having drag queens dancing in front of their kids at a Christmas parade. So you know what? Have a separate one for this group of people. That way you please everybody. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that is a better idea than mixing them together, you know? So in 2023, city council leaders voted overwhelmingly to create a new event ordinance that would effectively ban the churches from being part of the future community events. So now they're banning churches from this and siding with drag queens. Said the new ordinance, according to Texas Values Group, is legally the same Democrat Party ordinance large cities like Houston and Austin use that were heavily influenced by secularism, woke, and LGBTQ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The ministers wrote in a lengthy statement on the controversy. Long story short, the Christians were effectively told to shut up and mind their own business. Yeah, this is a sad story because you're taking the meaning out of Christmas from these parades. It's meant to be innocent. And you have this one side, this radical group, getting offended by it and wanting to infiltrate it and turn to their own Christmas drag queen dance fest in front of kids. Totally inappropriate. You know, it's completely inappropriate in my opinion. If you want to do it, those type of things behind closed doors, 18 up, I don't care. I don't care. Just leave the kids out of it. I think that's where the problem comes in, is when you bring young people into this nonsense. You're trying to brainwash them, indoctrinate them to believe that they are a certain gender, to believe that they are one of the 63 genders. Last time I checked, it could be up to 150 now. To me, it's sad. And yes, these things do happen in Texas. A lot of people get surprised by this. They say, "Oh, well, this happened in Texas? I can't believe it." Yes, we have a lot of lunatics here. This is a big state. 30 million people live in the state of Texas. Yes, there are a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans here. The state is run by Republicans. Some rhinos, yes. But the people of Texas, by and large, are conservative. But you do have a group of people that live here that believe this, that give into this left-wing nonsense, that want to promote this left-wing nonsense with drag queens and just gender ideology nonsense, with being whatever you feel like whenever you wake up. You wake up, you want to be a man, you want to be a woman, you don't know what you want to identify as, that's totally okay. You want to have a sex change at 10 years old, totally okay. Put in, books in the schools, which are pretty much like pornography. Yeah, we have people in Texas that believe these things. It is across the country, so we're not immune to it, but we just have to fight it. So just because we are a conservative state doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with this nonsense. Yeah, just want to share that with you so you can know what's going on in the state of Texas on this issue. Now, let's get to crime. A sad killing here in this. 4 people killed in Dallas, actually, just the other day. Let's check this out. By a lunatic who cut off his ankle monitor.
Dallas police say the man who killed 4 neighbors, including a child, later killed himself after a police chase. Hello, I'm Steve Eager.
Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Hayes. We know from court records that the killer previously threatened 2 of those victims with a gun, and he was recently placed under electronic monitoring. Fox 4 Stephen Dial following the case. Stephen.
Dallas investigators told us this afternoon that the gunman, Byron Carrillo, knew his victims, and they say he took his own life after a chase with DPS troopers.
We have 4 lives that are lost, including, a small child. It's a tragedy when you lose one life.
A southeast Dallas neighborhood is still on edge following the murder of 4 people Sunday afternoon. Dallas police got a call to Royce Drive near I-20. When investigators arrived, they found a disturbing scene.
One man, two women died at the scene. There was a 15-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy that were taken to a local hospital for their injuries. The 1-year-old sadly died.
Monday, police identified the gunman as 21-year-old Byron Carrillo. He was known to DPD from a 2021 aggravated assault case. Records indicate Carrillo had used a gun to threaten two of the victims he later murdered. The assault case was still open. After the murder, police say Carrillo stole a vehicle and headed south.
And went south on 35. That's where DPS located him. He had a he had a pursuit with those officers, eventually crashed his car, got out and ran. And when officers approached him, that's when he shot himself, and he died at that scene.
The victims were identified as 1-year-old Logan Dela Cruz, 20-year-old Vanessa Dela Cruz, 33-year-old Karina Lopez, 50-year-old Jose Lopez. The 15-year-old...
I hate seeing stories like this because innocent lives were taken tragically by a nut job.
Shooting victim survived, and police say a 13-year-old was also in the home and was not injured. Records show that in late November, Carrillo was placed under court order to wear an ankle monitor, part of his bond conditions not to be near Vanessa Dela Cruz and Jose Lopez, the victims of the assault case. Records show Carrillo's monitoring was registered to the house next door to where the murders happened, and that the monitor itself was tampered with at 4:22 Sunday.
He cut that ankle monitor off either before or after the offense, but he was known to us, and he was also known to the victims.
Now, Dallas police investigators directed us to the Department of Public Safety for more information as to Carrillo killing himself and the chase that happened. We reached out to DPS, and we're still awaiting a response.
All right, Stephen.
Sad story. Now, the guy was right next door to the victims, and he has a history of being violent, hitting his ex-girlfriend. I mean, now they're both deceased, and he was put in an ankle monitor because of his actions, assaulting her, punching her in the face. But the man, it was right next door. It was right next door, and apparently she had planned to move to Arlington with the relative to keep her distance from this guy. Sadly, that didn't happen because she was killed by this nut job. Now, I don't know, ankle monitors, I don't know how easy those things are to get off, but apparently it's doable because this nut job did that. I don't know what could have been done about this guy, what it could have been done differently to keep him away. I mean, obviously these criminals are not going to listen to their orders. You can say all you want, okay, you have to stay away from the victims. Yeah, but anybody can violate a restraining order or anything. Any nut job that's not supposed to have a gun can get one, sadly. Which is why this gun control stuff doesn't really work. It's a poor argument because nut jobs like this can get their hands on weapons and go kill 4 innocent people and injure another one. Just a sad situation here in Dallas-Fort Worth. In Dallas, I don't live that far from Dallas. I'm in DFW. Dallas is about 20 minutes up the highway from me. This is just sad knowing these things happen, right next door to you. But, yeah, Texas is not immune to any of these things, even though I report on a lot of stuff that happens in California, in New York, or Chicago, or Memphis, Las Vegas. You see a lot of stories around the country, but yes, these things do happen here as well. These tragic stories do happen in the state of Texas, and a lot of times right here in Dallas-Fort Worth. We're a metropolitan area of about, I think we just passed 8 million people. So you're going to have some nut jobs here, sadly. All right, final story for you guys from Texas. Sheila Jackson Lee. I don't know if you heard about this. She is running she's a congresswoman for the state of Texas. She's in the House of Representatives, and she is also running for the Houston mayor. Yeah, I heard this woman's nasty. I heard she's a nasty woman in person. Let's check out some information that she got wrong on her TV ad for the runoff in the city of Houston.
Houston, I've spent my entire career fighting for you. From fighting to keep our kids safe from guns when I was on city council, to my days in Congress fighting to protect women's reproductive freedom, and for funding for our police, schools, and small businesses. Now I'm running to be your mayor, because if we're going to bring down crime, fix our streets, and bring good-paying jobs here, then Houston needs a champion who's ready to fight for what's right. And I am.
She missed a key detail on her ad. She said the election is December 7th. The runoff is actually December 9th. So you have to be diligent with these types of things. If you want to win the election, you have to make sure people go out there and vote on December 9th and not December 7th. No, I don't feel sorry for this woman because I heard she's a disgusting woman. I know somebody who was a pilot, and she's been on his flights before, and she is a nasty woman. She's not a friend to our side. So I hope she doesn't look. I don't want her to run Houston to the ground more than it already has been, with crime plaguing the city in a lot of areas. But just based on what I know about this woman, what I've seen, I hope she gets clobbered in the election by making this key mistake. Her voters are going to show up to the polls and on December 7th, and there's going to be no election. I mean, maybe December 9th is not a good day for them to vote, so they'll miss out, and she'll lose, hopefully. But all right, guys, I'm going to end it right there. That was your quick roundup of a few stories around the state of Texas. I'll be doing these more often, putting things onto one video versus having multiple videos, because a lot of times there are a lot of stories I can't get to. So I think it's better to just put them all in one, and you can hear what's going on throughout the state. But I'll have more updates for you as the days and weeks come on. Looking into doing a podcast, put on Spotify to cover multiple stories in across various platforms to expand the reach of this channel and get the news out there that you want to hear the best, that you most want to hear. But all right, guys, thanks for listening. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Take care.